It feels really good to be back. So only 31 days, but even so, I missed much of what it means to be a rabbi, spending time connecting with congregants, creating space for joy and for sorrow, and just being here at Sinai Temple, because like so many of you, Sinai Temple is my spiritual home. The question I am asked most often, well, Rabbi, during your sabbatical, what did you do? So I spent my sabbatical with a pretty strict regimen, and with the advice given from congregant David Lefkowitz, who is here this morning, I spent every morning writing. Almost 2 hours every day, editing and expanding pieces of my writing that I've collected since 2011. I was able to spend time reflecting about my journey as a rabbi, how my life has changed, how this world has changed. I was able to get through about 2/3 of my writing project, and I'm saying this out loud so you can hold me accountable. I hope to have the project, perhaps a book, finished by the end of the summer. The rest of my day was spent exercising, reading, cooking new meals for dinner every night. One recipe was also tzadik, which I need a lot more practice on. But, and you can ask him, as my son Zachary put it, I like sabbatical, mommy. And while I gleaned many lessons over the month, there are two that stand out. One, I must learn how to incorporate aspects of sabbatical living into my everyday life, creating strong boundaries, healthy habits, because taking time to rest should not be seen as luxurious or selfish, but rather it must be seen as a necessity. I think these last 31 days have helped me become a better wife, a better mother, and I pray a better rabbi to each of you. The second lesson, of which will be the bulk of my sermon this morning, being on sabbatical reminds you of that which you cannot take a sabbatical, meaning you cannot and should not escape from certain circumstances. Sabbatical is a means of reflection and learning, but it's not a time in which you can hide under the covers. And so, unsurprisingly, I couldn't take a sabbatical from my family, but that was glorious. So I wasn't necessarily relaxed, but I attended every basketball game. I rehearsed all the play lines. I sat by my kids' beds when they were sick. I helped with endless hours of homework. I volunteered for walk after walk with our golden retriever, Molly. Now, I do much of the above anyway, but I gained a deeper appreciation for what it means to be a present wife and mother. So I thank all of you for helping me with that gift of a renewed perspective. And I could not take a sabbatical from some of the most major, newsworthy events that happened during the month of January. I could not take a sabbatical from the heart-wrenching news in Minnesota. Now, whatever exactly transpired, whether Alex Preddy should have been there or not, how agents behaved, whether they did their job or not, you certainly don't need my political analysis. But I could not take a sabbatical from the ways we are ferociously turning on each other. Instead of valuing human spirit, instead of honoring memory, instead of reminding ourselves that as humans, we are sophisticated enough to both respect the law while also remaining empathetic and loving. In person, online, in print, I watched as so many chose to repeatedly attack each other's opinions, each other's characters, and varied lenses with venomous insult. Now, my responsibility as a rabbi is to elevate the hidden facets of our hearts. And so I know, on many levels, there must be a better way forward. And so this morning, to even acknowledge a better way, to pray for a better way, I believe highlights God's desire for humanity to exist, B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of the Holy One of blessing. I could not take a sabbatical when I learned that the IDF heroically brought home the last hostage from Gaza, Ron Gavili. To see the images of Ben Gurion Airport finally bare, stripped of the faces and names that have been held in our hearts for over 2 years, those faces that remained on our synagogue wall, our sanctuary wall, and our seats. I believe on that day, the entire people of Israel exhaled, while all of us united in pain and now relief, we've let out a breath I think we've been holding with such agonizing weight. And as his family gave Ron a proper burial, finally, I think Eretz Yisrael could wake up from the horrors of October 7th and defiantly say, you know what? I think right now we can say it's October 8th. We don't take a sabbatical from the ways that Israel moves forward, needing each and every one of us to stand by her side during this very moment of resurgence. And so with our support, with our steadfast love, and with no time to rest, we will always say, Am Yisrael Chai, Israel continues to live. And I couldn't take a sabbatical from the atrocities taking place in Iran. Because while on sabbatical, you have a lot of time. Time to scour the internet, scan news sources, check influencers' pages. And I kept looking for information and speeches about the thousands and thousands of innocent protesters in Iran killed by the current regime. But here's the irony. With the exception of just a few voices, very few voices, there has been a suffocating, blanketing silence. Where's the outrage? How is it that the cries of women wanting to express themselves freely, wanting to sing and dance and show their hair and speak out, not just in this time, but over the last 40 plus years of terror? How is the call for a free Iran not on every single front page, headlining every single news outlet? And so I couldn't take a sabbatical because we must give voice to the voiceless, for the masses, the armitas, from them, who they represent, their stories, and the future of the Iranian people. No, I will not take a sabbatical. Now, many of us watched the Super Bowl last Sunday. Now, when I say many of us, I don't actually include myself because I didn't watch the Super Bowl. But I watched the commercials. And I was most interested in the commercial, the advertisement, that characterized an anti-Semitic event taking place in a high school. Did you watch it? Okay. Now, some praised the commercial, and that the conversation about Jew hatred was given this primary spot and primary attention. And others didn't like at all how this kind of anti-Semitism was portrayed. But minutes later, there was an alternate advertisement that started to make its way around the internet. The commercial being the same boy being picked on for being Jewish, but then the commercial continued, showing the boy proud of his Jewish heritage, showing him eating Shabbat dinner with his family, continuing as an adult in school, becoming a doctor or a researcher, and then coming up with the research that ultimately saves another human being's life. And so the end of that commercial doesn't end with Jews seeing themselves as victims, but rather the commercial, this alternate commercial, says that we must see ourselves as builders, as conveners of positive change, dialogue, innovation, beacons of light and peace to the world. In other words, when you are a Jew, there is no taking a sabbatical from who you are and who you are meant to become. Rabbi Dr. Daniel Ross Goodman, in his piece on sabbatical consciousness, writes, "Rest is more than leisure from work. Rest is a state of inner discovery, tranquility, and unfolding. The Sabbath commandment is not just to stop working, it's to actively achieve menucha, rest, through self-expression, through transformation, through renewal. On this day, humans are freed to explore themselves and their relationships until they attain the fullness of being. And so we need rest, and we need breaks to reflect on what is most important in our busy lives and to notice what stands out, what should stand out, and spend time grappling with and refining who God wants us to be. It's rest that accentuates our godly purpose." In my time of reflection, I found this piece I wrote many, many years ago. Jewish philosopher Mordechai Kaplan writes, "An artist cannot be continually wielding his brush. He must stop at times in his painting to freshen his vision of the object, the meaning of what he wishes to express on his canvas. And living is also an art. The Sabbath represents those moments when we pause in our brushwork to renew our vision of the object. Having done so, we take ourselves to our painting with clarified vision and renewed energy. As each of us rush through this world, we have to pause and put down the paintbrush, because our individual masterpieces become nothing but a blur if we do not take time to reflect on our priorities and renew our purpose. While we may anxiously wait to pick up the paintbrush, surprisingly, with a few pauses here and there, we may be more ready to create than we ever were before. And so with much gratitude, I thank you. I thank you for this very special time. It was a short respite that brings me back to all of you with an uplifted spirit, a replenished soul, and a reminder of who I am. There are moments in our lifetime in which we must be quiet, but there are also moments in which we must speak up, times for sabbatical, and of course circumstances of which we must never take a break. May the pauses we choose bring us closer to each other, and always closer to what God intends for each and every one of us. Shabbat Shalom.